Welcome back to Between Two Bs, the official podcast of the B to SMB Institute and our 5,000 plus business to small business professionals. HouseCall Pro's co-founder Roland Ligtenberg shares how building a genuine community of local service pros transformed their platform into an essential business tool. That tool is handier than a hammer or a wrench, used an average of 7.25 hours daily by 100,000 plus users. His pragmatic community-led growth playbook drives success via deep user connections, multiplying the power of solo-preneurs into a vibrant, growth-driving customer base. He's one of our keynote speakers at our Sonoma Leaders Forum. Join me, Dave Walker, on this latest episode of the Between Two Bs podcast.
If you sell at scale to small business, you need to be here. The 7th Annual B to SMB Institute Leaders Forum, May 14th and 15th in Sonoma, gathers business to small business executives from dozens of major brands to talk shop. The winning, keeping, and growing of SMB customers. Our 2025 B to SMB Institute Leaders Forum extends the central theme of our 2024 events, selling successfully in a small business marketplace that's seen extraordinary growth and change in the last 2 years. Combining keynotes from B to SMB sales superstars with frequent small-sided breakouts, the 2025 Leaders Forum presents research-based insights, best practice playbooks, and a steady dialogue of shared wisdom on winning, keeping, and growing SMB customers. Our B to SMB Institute Leaders Forum sold out these last 2 years, so it's not too early to save your spot at our top-to-top networking and strategy exchange for senior B to SMB execs. Get your tickets today at b2smbi.com/leadersforum25. Are you ready to master the new sell? Join us for the 6th Annual Leaders Forum in Sonoma, hosted by the B to SMB Institute. Tickets now on sale for the B to SMB Institute 2025 Leaders Forum. Members attend free. Email info@b2smbi.com for more information.
Good day, everybody. Dave Walker here with the Between Two Bs podcast. And I have with me the co-founder of HouseCall Pro. His name is Roland Ligtenberg. And I have really just gotten to know him and really kind of understand the breadth and the depth of what he and his co-founders have created in HouseCall Pro. And I'm going to let him describe it. But we wanted to talk about something that we're just kind of laughing beforehand about this new phrase that's kind of coming out, community-led growth. You know, you had to put a label on it. It's basically kind of a very old school concept is you network your customers to create more customers. And that's been going on for a very, very long time. But I think that, you know, taking a pause, and particularly in this ecosystem of small businesses, and really trying to understand, well, what is the role of community in basically how we sell and how we serve small businesses? And he's got some really, really, I think, some excellent points and an excellent playbook to share with us. So I'm really excited to have him here. Roland, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me here, Dave. This is super fun. It's a topic that I love talking about that it's part of our secret sauce, part of our magic sauce. But yeah, excited to dive a little deeper into it.
Yeah, and speaking of secret sauce and magic sauce, Jesus Christ, you guys have really built an amazing company. Talk to us about it. I mean, you've been there from the very beginning. Where is it now? Where was it? How did you guys come up with it?
Yeah, it's a long story. We founded the business back in 2013. The original premise was, Uber for home services. And what we quickly found out is that building a marketplace and Uberizing home services is impossibly difficult to build. If you're, getting into a black town car and going from A to B, it's fairly reliable, what you're going to get, what the price is, et cetera. When you get to home services, all of a sudden someone calls unclog the toilet and you get like a full, main sewer line repipe and, what you thought was going to be $100 ends up being, 20 grand. Yeah. And so building that is very difficult. But what we found as we were doing that is that a lot of our providers or service pros, they didn't have any software that they could run while they're out on the go. And so in 2015, we really focused on launching HouseCall Pro, which was the pro side of HouseCall. And ever since, so we've been doing that now for a decade and just building software and tools and solutions for our pros. It's really an all-in-one software platform. And then we have services as well. And does all the things that you think a field service management software can do, and then more. We also do payroll, we do accounting, we do websites, we do marketing, we do call answering, we do a lot of the things that our pros typically don't want to do because they're
Yeah, I was just
amazing
gonna say,
tradespeople,
I hate it.
amazing craftspeople, and we want to have them focus on what they do best, and really specialize, and we handle the rest. So that's what we built at HouseCall Pro, and we almost have 50,000 or so different companies using our software. Service 99% of all zip codes in the United States. 1 in 4 homes has had a HouseCall Pro professional in it. So it's an amazing, breadth that we have here of different home service companies. Think HVAC, plumbers, electricians, garage door, septic,
Mhm.
sewer, home cleaning, lawn care. There's 55 different ones that we have inside of all of our models, but there's all kinds of people that provide services at homes that do house calls, and that's who we serve day in, day out.
And I think I remember you had some really astounding stats about just the amount of dollars that flow through the House Call Pro platform as these guys are going out doing the work, charging for the work, collecting on the work. What was the number of transactions and the amount of money that flows through in the last year?
When we take a look at the data that we have, there's over 100 million jobs inside of HouseCall Pro. There's tens of billions in any given year going through our platform. So it's a big percentage, it's still a small percentage of the overall home services market, but they're pretty big numbers. And so with that, we really can help optimize our platform, what we offer to our pros, so that if you're not using HouseCall Pro, then you're not as well off. And so we use those pieces in addition to kind of our AI strategy, our AI team members, to help our pros not have to do the sitting jobs so they can do their standing jobs. And I think that's where, we can talk about AI too, and where that all is headed to. And home services is really well positioned to take great advantage of what's happening here. But just in general, I'd say, we're here to champion our pros to success. That's our mission. We've been doing that since day one. That's worked all the way through. And now we're taking a little bit of a bigger, broader stance. We're also championing the trades overall. And I think people are seeing a resurgence in that. You
Very much
see
so.
a Gen Z career uptake in vocational trade schools. I think people are starting to realize, what really powers the nation, what's the backbone of the nation versus, oh, go to college, get a white collar job, get automated by AI. Welcome to the new world. So yeah, we've been on quite a tear, and we have an amazing company and amazing employees and even more amazing customers. But it's been a fun journey so far.
So the user base that you've grown, from humble beginnings in 2013, it's a great doorway into the conversation about community. As you kind of think about your history, at what point do you think, or was it from the very beginning? At what point did you realize, hey, we got a lot of people here, and there's really an opportunity to create something that networks them together. When did that epiphany happen?
Really, community is just more than one person.
Right.
So what does that mean? When we started, we would do ride-alongs with our pros. We would eat lunch with them. We would go get coffee with them. And that's when we first started building the community in person in San Diego, where we started the business. And what we found out was that, being in the trades is sometimes lonely. Being an entrepreneur in general is lonely
Yeah, no doubt.
because, you're dealing with so many highs and lows and you're kind of by yourself. But in the trades, it's even more lonely because you're often out there doing work, doing jobs, but it's you and the customer, and you don't really have that same like water cooler effect. And you don't have a lot of, hey, you don't get together with all your local plumbers and hang out because you're kind of competitors. And, so community is kind of hard to find. And so when we started building community, it was just us and our pros, doing ride-alongs. And slowly what we found out was, okay, we really want to get as much feedback from them as we can, but we want them to give feedback to one another. And
Hmm.
so we started inviting them out, and we pay for it. We take them to Fuddruckers in San Diego, it was in Mira Mesa, and we buy them burgers and beer, and we do that on Wednesdays. And every week we do that. We'd host them. They'd come. They'd talk to us about the problems, things they're thinking about, the business, using our software. Where are they finding customers? What's the crazy customer story of the week? All kinds of just different things that are not always related just to HouseCall Pro, but just life as a pro, in San Diego at that time. And so that was the very early beginnings of HouseCall Pro, and it actually happened in person. And so, over time, we saw that a lot of our pros were posting on Facebook. And this is kind of what they would do when they had windshield time, downtime, time between jobs, and when they're refueling, et cetera. And so that's where we started really going out and building our community to where it's now. And it's part of our secret sauce, part of our magic sauce. But it's just by observing our customers and being with them allowed us to start to get this intuition around, hey, wait a minute, there's a community that's already being built here. Why don't we just continue down this path?
Do they get the joke of community? I mean, do they really kind of understand, if they're a painter, do they understand why it's a good idea to talk to other home contractors or other painters even? Do they kind of understand that, yeah, there's more power. I become better when I understand what everybody else is doing in this crazy space?
Yeah, I think there's different stages. The first stage is I want to keep all my secrets to myself. I don't want to share with anyone because everyone's a competitor. And then they get to the stage of, oh my gosh, this is a pretty big market. Even in San Diego with population 3 million plus, it's okay if I share this even with another local painter, or I can even share work with this other local painter, or I can
Right,
share the
right.
things that I do. And I
Hmm.
think once they kind of get over that initial fear, that hump, I think they start to realize, oh my gosh, I don't have to necessarily learn the hard way that it did all these other lessons. Maybe I can just listen and ask others what they
Hmm.
experienced so that I can avoid making either that same mistake or learning that lesson the hard way or spending tens of thousands of dollars with a random marketing company that you didn't need to do because they
Hmm.
promised you #1 ranking on Google, or whatever. But they learn from one another on these things. Innately, they want to learn our pros, just like any human does. I think there's that fear component first, which is that phase.
Hmm.
And then once they get together, they can see part of the value. That's when those trust barriers start to like evaporate or build up, essentially in the sense they're like, okay, I can trust this community. I can trust putting information out. I can trust other people, even if they're in the same industry, even in the same area. And so I think as they go through those phases, there's different ways to get them to go through different phases and help them along their journey. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to making sure that they know that there's someone there that's looking out for them and having
Hmm.
their back and championing them to success, which is, where we come in.
So again, great bridge. The word trust, which I think is the thrust of what we're going to talk about today, is you believe that trust is the most valuable byproduct of community. And obviously, trust in each other as fellow contractors, as peers in kind of the small business space is a big value for them. But a big value for you is the trust that they have that you fostered over, burgers at Fuddruckers and all the different ride-alongs that you've done, and that continual loop of feedback, building that community, you believe is really an essential ingredient in your selling success, in your business success. Talk about that a little bit, about why you think that is, and then talk a little bit about, I want to ask kind of two sides of a similar question. Why do small businesses just so naturally not trust us as sellers? And the flip side of that is, why are they so easy to trust their peers? We always talk about word of mouth is the way you win business with small business. What's what's going on with that dynamic? Why do you think that is, with all of your years of working with it?
Sure. I think in general, humans don't want to be sold, and they know this, and they try to avoid it. And with our pros in particular, some have gone to college, some not, but they've had to learn business sort of the rough and tumble way. And
Hmm.
I think they might not have a bachelor's in engineering or, master's or whatever it is, but they definitely have a great degree in detecting BS. And
Hmm.
so when it comes to building trust, when it comes to selling them, it's much easier to have them talk to their peers
Hmm.
who objectively have no skin in the game other than recommending something that has helped them. So when we're talking about community-led growth, you're enabling other people to tell your story and their story and your product and how it's helped them, so that you're not the one that's constantly barking in their ear, yeah, you should use this, it's going to grow your business, I promise you, 30%, da, 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 da. Now, there's always components of any business where you have to do this, right? This is demand generation. But there's this whole other aspect, which is a big component of our business, which is just organic, word of mouth, tough to measure. But we know if we run through sort of the framework on how we built our community, that this will naturally start to happen. And so this is a hard pitch for a lot of business owners to make. What's the ROI? How do I measure it? I don't know. People are talking. It seems so almost antiquated in a way, but now is this kind of in vogue term where people think, okay, no, I want this. How do I build a community? Where do you start? And so that's where, I have a framework for thinking about in the way that we build it. And there's lots of different end ways we do it, but the framework applies to all kinds of businesses that are looking to kind of build a community.
So let's talk a little bit about the mechanics of how. I mean, at this point, you've already grown a community. Do you rely on your community members to be, frankly, your prospectors for new members? Do you go out and have your own kind of team that's really trying to build the community and get those referrals and get those references and those new members? How do you do it?
So we do have our own community team, and it's its own full team, and their job is to nurture our community. But there's, I'd say there's probably about 10 different tenets, but I'd say probably that the 5 or 6 most important tenets in building trust and building community is, one, you have to show up consistently. So how do you start building trust? You say you're going to do something, then you do something. You have to be consistent. So in our communities, for example, we show up every week on a Whiteboard Wednesday with a new tip for them, right? So I'm just going to show some practical examples, and then I'm going to give you the framework. The second one is you need to really listen to what your customers are saying and respond quickly. So it's almost Pavlovian in a way. Dog does a good trick. Give it the treat right away. Not 1 hour later, because 1 hour later, the dog's gonna be like, what the hell is this thing? Thanks. But I'm not stringing the two things together. But if a customer sees that you listen deeply and then you respond or you build something quickly, now all of a sudden they feel like there's a collaboration. Once again, it increased trust. The third piece really is you need to spotlight their stories and their success and not yours. So Nike's an amazing company. I always love bringing them up because they're not just showing you just the shoe. They're spotlighting the athletes that are amazing athletes that happen to be wearing Nikes. In the same way that our successful plumbing companies, our successful HVAC companies, they're amazing. They're successful. They're growing. They're happy. They've got work-life balance. They've got optionality, whatever. They happen to be running on HouseCall Pro. So spotlight the stories. And then as you're building a product, you're selling something to them at some point, but as you're building it, you need to build it with them and not for them. So a lot of people are like, oh, it's this built for the trades or this built for the thing. This collaboration increases trust. When people feel like they've been a part of the journey, they will recommend it because they feel like it's their ideas. So we have a concept, a practical thing where our pros can submit pro votes. What does that mean? It's just them giving us a piece of feedback, but we say, thank you so much, Dave, for that pro vote. We're going to see how we can incorporate that, but we log it. And then if we ship that feature or that idea, we let them know, hey, Dave, we built this thing that you talked about. Thank you so much for your idea. Now, trust through the roof. Now, Dave is going to be, man, you know what? They listened to me and they built it. Oh my God. I feel this connection. I feel this sense of community. I feel this sense of partnership. I feel this sense of trust. When you deliver results, do it and then over deliver. And the classic tenet here is, under promise, over deliver. But as the pros are making more money or saving more time or growing their business because of you, they trust you, but still go out of your way to surprise them, even with other things that you do and show ways that you care. Our software helps them with their business, but we do things such as Trade Academy, where we put dollars, HouseCall Pro dollars, and we find other sponsors as well, to sponsor people to get into the trades. That helps their business long-term, not directly, but indirectly. That shows them that we care. We're over-delivering on our promise just to champion our pros, but also champion the trades overall. And I say the last one, because there's so many different things, but the last piece is just be transparent, especially when you screw up. So a lot of times when it comes to software development, selling to SMBs, you're going to make a wrong turn somewhere here, somewhere there. You will 100% of the time. And it's going to happen multiple times. there's two ways to deal with it. One is, apply some spin to it or change the way that it looks, or just say, oh man, we shipped this feature. For whatever reason we messed up here, you guys didn't like it. We're going to change this back. And that authenticity breeds trust, builds the community, and then people feel like, oh wow, Roland and his team, they're real people. They're really listening to us. So there's just a whole bunch of different frameworks, the different things that you can do that can help build the trust, that builds the community. And then long term, those pros now are like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I helped build that product too. You should be using HouseCall Pro. Oh, my buddy down the street uses it. Whenever I say something, they listen and they respond quickly. They talk about me. They never talk about them. I need to talk about them now because all they do is talk about me. And they don't build it for me. I build it with them. And so it's like these types of things that all kind of come together that build community. And if you have this as your philosophy and you've got a team that's going down this path, you're going to start to naturally do it. And you're going to find yourself with decisions on, do you break these principles or not? And you got to uphold them. And if you keep doing it over time, you show up consistently, which is the number one thing, then it's going to work. But it doesn't happen overnight. And that's what people hate to hear.
Yeah, by the way, it strikes me that every time you mention the word pro, I just think it's so interchangeable with any small business, right? I mean, it's just any small business, whatever what they do. Well, okay, so let's talk about that in kind of the early growth stages of this. You obviously had a user base as it was growing. Were you identifying kind of along the way, these are our ambassadors, what Alignable calls ambassadors. These are the people that basically we can count on to communicate the level of passion and service quality and responsiveness that we have. They're believers. They're already believers. And they're the best people for us to hold up to really attract new people in. Is that kind of how it went? Is that you found the right people at first, or did it just kind of all concentrically grow out as you guys grew out?
The answer is both. And we leverage what we call our super pros, right? Which we lovingly, modeled after Superhost and Airbnb, but super pros are pros that deliver an exceptional service to homeowners, and they do it in a very modern and friendly way, a way that we believe the future is, the way that incorporates using our tool correctly and to its maximum capacity. And we want to tell the stories of the pros because they grow the fastest. They are the top 5% of our customers. We even have these customers, they will tattoo Super Pro and HouseCall Pro on their body. They're evangelical. We have changed their lives. We have changed their marriages. We have changed their families. Not because we do it directly, it's because we help them on the hardest part of their day-to-day life, which is running the operations of a business they never really wanted to necessarily do. They wanted to do their trade, and go out and help other people. And so these super pros are our biggest evangelists, and we leverage them in many different ways. And then they leverage us. So it's very equal in that way. They're often the ones that get to use our alphas and our betas. We work very closely with them when it comes to this feedback. We can't have our product managers talking to hundreds, thousands of our customers at any single time they want to ship a feature. We talk to our super pros that will come into the office, that'll let us ride along. They'll give us very honest and open feedback. A lot of times they'll be like, this is ridiculous. What are you guys doing here? Don't build this feature this way. Are you crazy? Or they'll be like, oh my God, this is truly the best thing. And they're not just, fluffing it up for us. And so we both have just our innate group of pros, which are our customers, which is our community. I call that kind of like, I don't know, lowercase c. And then we have community of the trades, which is our uppercase C. That's all the trades people. And then we have our super pros. And I often like to use, and we don't have, I'm waving with my hands here, but often the slides of these concentric circles within one another. And as you start to grow, you hone in on some of these what other people call ambassadors. We also have a social ambassadors program. And so you can use the words different, which is a little separate from our super pros, but our super pros are those customers of ours that have demonstrated they use all the different parts of the platform to its fullest capacity. They've got all their reviews. They've got so many years in business. They've broken this revenue milestone. They've hired extra people. They're growing businesses. These are the types of, if we could make all of our pros like these super pros, oh my gosh, our business would even explode and we wouldn't even need to add any more customers. It's just, that's the level of attachment and engagement they have within the product and adoption of all the features and things that we've built that we've always envisioned that we hope all of our pros can use. because HouseCall Pro is so wide. So that's a long way of saying we have our super pro group. To others, you might call that your main evangelist or your ambassadors,
Mhm.
or there's different ways to describe them. But we have a separate community person that is solely dedicated to serving our super pros. And so within the way that we've built our organization, we have different community managers for different concentric circles
Right.
that we have.
Makes
And
sense.
it's because it's important that we're continually giving back. We are their air traffic control. If they need extra help, we go above and beyond. We build that trust. We spotlight their stories. They're the ones that are, on our homepage, on housecallpro.com. And, for these pros, we do the same thing. We show up consistently for them. We give them lots of value outside of just the software. We do pro office hours. We do quick tip Tuesdays. Um, there's all kinds of different things that we do and that we offer to them that we don't necessarily offer to the entire populace,
Hmm.
all of our pros. And so that makes it an elite group to be in, and it creates demand to be in there, and they in return, give us all the feedback we can back, which is kind of a catalyst for this community growth loop.
No, I completely get it. So, you've kind of touched on all of these, but I want to kind of isolate four key areas of your business operations: product development, marketing, sales, and customer service, and the impact that this community has had on kind of each of those four pillars of your operation. So, how has the community basically impact how your product dev guys think about product dev?
I think we have a very great path, which we call voice of the customer, where
Hmm.
our product team, which includes product managers, product marketing managers, engineering, product designers, right? That kind of full squad there. We make it very easy for them to engage, do panels, not formal surveys, but side by side Zoom. How are you using it, Dave? Let me see you click through it, all these different components. And so when we think about how communities impact product development, is we have really high engagement. It's not hard. We don't have to do a fancy Qualtrics, multimodal, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah survey. We can just talk to our customers and they know that we're there to listen to their feedback. So the product development side is just sped up with time to market because they can iterate much more quickly. They can roll out alphas. They don't have to worry about screwing something up, because even if they do, our pros will forgive us, right? They might
Hmm.
be a little salty, at times, but then we know, and then we can fix even quicker. Versus if you don't have that community, if you don't have that trust, if you mess up, you got to slow down the process to make sure you get everything right. But if you do that, you lose your competitive edge, you lose your
Right.
advantage. So
Right.
community
Right.
allows us to reduce those cycle times. So product
Hmm.
development is very key to that. And every single week, our community managers will do a weekly roundup of everything that they're hearing in the community, and they'll give that to our product team, to go
Hmm.
sift through, to go see how our pros are talking about it, what is top of mind for them, how are things working for them, how are other things not. So that's a small little bubble there for product dev.
When I first entered the business to small business space back in the company that I was building from 2011 to 2017, what I noticed was so many people building products and services directed at small businesses had an engineering top-down kind of approach. We are going to build the product and the feature set that we believe small businesses need and have to have. We're not going to ask. We're not going to ask what they need. And it sounds like, you've kind of flipped that on its back and said, "Well, wait a minute. We're going to actually design products directly from the feedback that we get." And I think that's the future, to be honest with you. I think that it creates much more dynamic products. So let's talk about its impact on marketing. So is there an equivalent level of pressure to on your marketing leadership to do the things that marketing leadership is supposed to do, which is we got to generate tonnage in the form of leads. We've got to always keep awareness way up there. We've got to, make sure that we've got this level of engagement, those kinds of things. Do they think about things differently? Because frankly, they are mining not the broad world, but they're really kind of mining this incredibly powerful community that you built.
Yeah, I think the community is one component of our business at large, and it's something that we can utilize and tap into from all the different organizations within the business. And so
Hmm.
each one uses it a little bit differently. So on the marketing front, when it comes to generating MQLs, to generating leads, to nurturing, to building the brand, to doing LCM, to doing all of these different aspects that the marketing teams, involved in, community kind of lives throughout, because at the end of the day, you want to show to someone that is a non-HouseCall Pro user a very successful HouseCall Pro user, because they will look up to them and be like, oh man, I want to be where Dave's at. Look at it. He's got 10 beautifully wrapped trucks, technicians with clean uniforms, and they're out there and they're killing it. I see their billboard on the freeway every day. So we use our community to figure out who are the stories, who are the pros, who are our customers that we want to tell. And then that folds into, paid media spend, because we get amazing testimonials, right? We highlight those amazing testimonials. It just lives in so many different places within marketing overall. So, it's really viewed as an asset and something that we can leverage, because it's rare to have this kind of engagement with your customers. Normally, you go to someone's site and you see all these quotes and you're like, hold a minute, I looked on LinkedIn, none of these people are even real. For us, you go to our homepage, you can look them up. In fact, you can go see All American Plumbing right on our homepage. It's one of our first customers, Byron Hope, and you can call him up and say, hey, do you know Roland? And be like, yeah, Roland, he sold me HouseCall Pro because he bought me coffee at Starbucks one year, back in 2015. So, that authenticity breeds trust that happens via community. Trust helps sell the marketing vision of, what we're trying to show other pros what success can look like. So marketing is greatly affected by, all the things we do in community, but it's seen as like an asset that we can use in many different ways.
No doubt, no doubt. So now let's talk about the salespeople. I mean, the people who are kind of at the tip of the spear of sales. And it sounds like they're going to enter a conversation with a prospective new customer with already a fair degree of trust established. They're not going to have to hump over that hill and beg and plead them, oh, please, please, please trust me. Have you found that you're turning them more into coaches trying to help these pros get best and highest value out of your platform? Is that what they're really kind of focused on? Is it, look, I'm not here just to sell you. I'm here to actually make sure you know how to use it and get the most out of it. Because a lot of people, that sell to small businesses believe that there's two sales that you have to make. The first sale is actually getting the check. The second sale is actually getting them to use it. And that second sale is actually a lot harder than the first sale. So I just speak to that is how do your sales folks really kind of engage in the job that they have to do?
For us, we still operate with that same mindset. That second one, actually, that you mentioned, which is we want to show them, hey, this is what it can do for you. And I'm going to get you on a demo, and you could do a free trial, David, if you want. You can go tour the empty model home where there's nothing in there, and you can kind of envision kind of in your head what it would look like. Or Dave, I can get you on a demo, and I could show you what one of our most successful pros accounts looks like. We've got a fake one set up just for your industry in HVAC, but then you can see how everything fits together, all the pieces of the puzzle. You can envision yourself using this product. And Dave, you don't need to listen to me, but if you'd like to, I can connect you with one of our super pros. They happen to be right here, actually two cities north of you. If you'd like to, I can connect you, because why listen to me? Just listen to someone that uses HouseCall Pro. I'm not trying to sell you. Just talk to them if you'd like to. And oftentimes even just offering that introduction helps break, any kind of sense of I'm trying to be sold, this kind of thing. It's like, just look, I'm outcome independent. I'm going to give you the tools. If you don't trust me, then go talk to one of our happy customers, right? And you know their name. You've probably seen them driving on the highway because they're 2 towns down. Okay. And so kind of those different types of elements really help us break that skepticism that's natural in SMB, where people don't want to be sold. We tell a story. We show them what success can look like. We allow them to envision themselves using our product. And if they want to talk to any of our other users, particularly our super pros that are our biggest evangelists, then great. Our super pros are happy to talk to. And so, we encourage people, hey, anyone you see on the website, you can go Google them, call them up and just say, hey, my name's Dave. I'm looking at new software. I see you're on the site. Are you actually using the software? How do you like it? What's good about it? What do you hate about it? Tell me the real deal.
Yeah.
And that's the realness that you find, in the space in which we operate. But that's how community ties into enabling that sales process to be different than kind of just the traditional, SDR, account executive, get you on the demo, get your credit card in, and good luck, Dave.
Right.
There's a much bigger story
Right.
that goes through that whole piece.
And I imagine that also has the last pillar on customer service is that your organization, your people, what their remit is just a different thing because of the community, because of the ability that you've got to kind of tap into the crowd wisdom and crowd
That's
experience.
right. And they're like, we tell our pros all the time, like, look, we've got some people that'll answer your questions in the blue chat bubble. If you want to schedule time to talk to us, we can. If you want to get really quick answers, you can use our help AI tool. If you want to hear how other pros that are using the software day in and day out are actually using it, and if they've experienced a problem, just go to our community, ask the question,
Hmm.
or hit the search bubble in our Facebook group. Just look, people have asked, how do you deal with credit card charges? Or like, what do you do if you have to fire someone? Do you reassign all their work, or do you let it automatically repopulate to whoever the employee is? Just whatever question it happens to be. You can ask your peers who are actually using the software versus asking someone that might not even be in the trades. Sure, we're a software company, and so we know how our pros use the software, or whatever, but like, ask someone that actually uses it day in, day out. And so we give them access to that. That's the customer success side of it. There's so many other ways that we leverage things.
We kind of mentioned in passing the challenge of delivering metrics that would satisfy a quote shareholder when you're investing in the kind of things that you're investing in. And I would imagine it has its own kind of unique set of ups and downs from the standpoint of revenue that it's generating, because sometimes you're lagging behind, but sometimes you're surging ahead because of how the community is responding to a new product launch or a new feature or new capability, or just simply, phases of growth. What are the metrics that you really key in on with kind of the commitment that you've made, which is very, very clear? Do you focus in on, this has increased our retention rate by X. This has really increased our referral rate by Y. This has really allowed us a significantly better opportunity to upsell, to really unlock new opportunities, new revenue streams, with each individual pro. Are those the things that when you guys are sitting around the table and looking at your KPIs, you kind of go, yeah, we've earned our bonus check. This is great. We've done the things that we really wanted to do.
No, I think it's very hard to measure directly because of the community increased retention by X. Now, you could say who is in the Facebook group and who is not, and what is their retention versus the other ones. But is it causal? Is it correlated? How
Mm-hmm.
close?
Fair enough.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that when you do things like NPS scores,
Mhm.
and you're sifting through those comments, by the way, it's really easy to dump that into AI. Figure out what comes up often. For us, community comes up very often. Now, I don't know. How does that impact all of the things? It clearly positively impacts all of the things that you mentioned, Dave. It definitely does. But did it increase by 2% or 5%? I don't know what was really the cause and effect of that. But within HouseCall Pro, we see whenever we do customer interviews, third-party interviews, whatever surveys, NPS scores, etc., community comes up very often. And so we know that it has a great effect on it. Now, what's interesting is when we launch new products, same thing applies. Pros will go, Dave, they just launched that new lead form. What do you think about it? Are you using it? Let me see your website. Oh, you are? You like it? Okay, I'll use it. The same thing. We try to bring the pros that are using the new products that we come up with, the new features we come up with. We try to tell their stories so other people feel like, wow, this is great. Rather than me being like, Dave, you should be using our payroll product to help save time. And it's $5 a month savings per employee. I was like, Dave, how are you paying your people? Oh, you got tied into HouseCall Pro. Well, that makes sense because they do the timesheets anyways. And it just flows over to the payroll and then you just click a button and it pays and auto calculates the commission because it knows how many tankless water heaters they've sold in the last month of March. Oh, okay, that all makes sense. Yeah, you're using it? Great. Okay, now I'll use it. So, we can see that folks that are in the community engage with more of our products, more of our add-ons, more of our features than those that don't. Now, causal correlation. I don't know. You can do all the data science in the world. And that's where it's difficult if you don't have buy-in from leadership, founders, executive teams, boards. If they're like, oh, what's the metric of, what percent upsell did it generate? Very, very difficult. But innately, good leadership, good executive will know because they'll see this trickle down effect in all different parts of the business, including the internal culture, which for us is champion the product success. And so when people see leadership living those mission, those values, it makes it easier for them to uphold that too when they're dealing with the customer interaction. And so that whole thing is just this great virtuous cycle, which builds upon itself, which when we're selling to SMB really matters.
Well, listen, man, I admire the confidence because I think that, having worked in very large companies for 30 years of my life, having been an entrepreneur myself, I mean, you doubt yourself on what you natively believe are the right metrics, which is, which really all kind of boil down to, I feel it, I see it, I sense it. It's not a KPI that I can point to. So I think that's more of that probably needs to happen as it relates to, frankly, dealing with small businesses, because if nothing else, it's so bloody fragmented that it's too hard to measure with any degree of certainty because you've got, millions of little snowflakes out there, and I don't mean that diminutively. They are snowflakes. They are very much their own kind of unique entrepreneurs and with their own unique set of needs. Sure, there's some common threads through them, but if you try and apply some sort of formula across the top of that, of what success looks like, not going to work. Never seen it work. Not yet. So
yeah, I think that the strongest communities, they aren't built by tracking metrics. They're built by creating something people care so much about that they bring in others without being asked.
Right. Exactly.
And if you need to see, a KPI to see if your community is working, it probably isn't. A real community is felt. It's not measured.
That's a very valid point. And I think that, me personally, and I'm an old branding guy, I would believe that NPS score and that use of the word community frequently as being validation, tremendous validation. It is a performance indicator that, yeah, you're doing the right thing. They understand what we're trying to offer basically, and they're taking it up. So you said it first, thank God. You use those two magic little letters, AI. Just the last question. What do you think is the role and impact of AI on your business and on your customer base?
Sure. So I think when it comes to SMB, particularly our types of pros, they've got standing jobs. But when they grow to a certain size, they need to hire sitting jobs. They need to have an office manager. They need to have a warehouse stocker. They need to have an accountant. They need to have maybe a lawyer they can call and an HR. And so when we think about what the pro really wants to do, if you ask the plumber, do you want to do those things? Do you like doing those things? Do you like paying for those things? A lot of them will see them as necessities, but they're not like, oh, I can't wait to dive into my books this month, Dave. Like, this is exciting. They do like to see, the P&L on a monthly basis so they can figure out where they can adjust or change things or maybe strategically, what do they operate on? But, the more monotonous things, chasing down people that haven't paid. Oh my gosh. Nobody likes doing that. No SMB likes doing that. Our pros sure don't. AI is going to empower our pros to do what they do best and make it really easy to start to augment or replace other parts of their business that they don't want to really do a lot of work in. And I think what starts really easily, if I think about what's the first job that they probably want to automate, the first one's answering their phones. Oftentimes they start a business. It's their cell phone. They're out there. Well, guess what? They're in the attic. They're in the crawl space. Who knows what? Their fingers are all messy. They're muddy, sweaty, whatever it is. The first step as they're growing, there's like the phone's ringing off the hook. I'm missing out on customers because they're calling someone else. What do I do? So at HouseCall Pro, we have CSR AI that can answer the call 24/7, doesn't call in sick. It listens to, the kind of the rules that you give it. If you don't want to quote a price over the phone, it won't do that. If you want to provide a quote over the phone, you can do that. If you don't want to schedule it, it won't do it. If you want to schedule it directly in HouseCall Pro, it can do it. It's just imagine you can train your own CSR AI at fractions of a penny of what it costs to hire a human. If you wanted a human 24/7, you need 3 humans doing a 24/7 shift.
Right.
Imagine the cost of that. You're probably spending easily 200K. Well, imagine how big your business has to be to offer that kind of a service.
Right.
Pretty large. You're probably running at least a $2 or $3 million shop at that point, and
Uh,
even then, you probably wouldn't do it.
no.
You'd have to outsource components. So for us, it starts with figuring out what are those sitting jobs that we can help our pros either take their existing people and make them a heck of a lot better or able to handle way more.
Mhm.
Or if they don't see a need for that and they don't want to hire a person, how can they put AI in place of a person or have it there until they really want a person to manage that component? And so
Mhm.
that's where we see just so much opportunity in the home services space. There's not going to be any Elon robots crawling in the duck spaces yet. Maybe the dog one, the Boston Dynamics one, the one that's in Black Mirror, maybe it'll like crawl over some crazy things. But reality, they're probably just running wire rather than actually doing, a lot of the work. It's going to be a while before any of that stuff happens. And so for us, as long as we can help champion our pro to success, whether we're using AI, whether we're using humans,
Mhm.
different solutions, we offer services, we offer coaching, we offer
Mhm.
websites, we offer payroll, we offer accounting, we offer book, all those pieces. Doesn't matter. As long as they're successful, we'll be successful. And we've always kind of kept that mantra since day one. And it's worked really well for us. And now we're just working on an even bigger mission, which is championing the trades. And I think, we've got a lot of tailwinds given the economy, given just the state of the nation and all of the things people are kind of starting to realize, oh, wait a minute, there's not enough of these guys and gals out there doing
Yeah,
this.
I don't want to, run over my time here, but I would love to talk to you just a couple minutes about what does championing your pros mean? I mean, we have a very large segment of our membership that are part of small business advocacy organizations of all sorts of different cuts and shapes and flavors. But what are you guys specifically doing? Notwithstanding, I completely believe in the idea that we need to do a significantly better job of growing the trades in this country. There's going to be a huge generational shift here, as they call it, the silver tsunami. There's going to be a whole number of small entrepreneurs, many of whom are HouseCall Pros, probably members, who are just going to be aging out. And who's replacing them? So talk a little bit about what you're doing specifically.
Yeah, so we have our sister arm kind of trade academy that's in the process of becoming a 501(c), which is essentially us and other companies such as WD-40, such as Supply House, that have a shared vision on making the trades great again and really just bringing that back to the forefront, bring in new people, bring in new talent to backfill a lot of these vacated positions, or soon to be vacated positions. And so, with Trade Academy, I think this year we gave away $125,000 worth of scholarships, was it 50 students? Yeah, I think 50 students, $2,500 each. We gave them tools, M18 Milwaukee sets, the funding. We give them HouseCall Pro for free. They get WD-40 products, whatever they can use within that year. So we really are trying to invest back into people that are coming in the trades. And maybe one day they'll use HouseCall Pro or work for a company that uses HouseCall Pro. But really the goal is our pros, they're growing on average 30%, or I think it's 35% the first year, some crazy number. And so as they grow, at some point they need to hire humans to do the work. And so if we can help match, our growing pros with the new incoming workforce that's trained, that's great. And so Trade Academy is a part of, championing the trades and also championing our pros.
Right.
That's more of a longer term vision there. But we do HouseCall Pro for education, which is where inside of trade schools, they can use HouseCall Pro entirely for free. So they can get used to using technological tools, not just the hard skills that they have to learn and the soft skills that they learn, but really just like, how do you work in a technological manner that matches with today's world?
Yeah.
And so we go in there and teach them how to use tools. What is AI? How does it work? How does HouseCall Pro work? How would you run a checklist? How do you
Right.
input these things? Those are all really important things that, in the future, you can't just do paper. It's just, I guess you could, but you're just not going to get to where you want to be doing that. And so, that's an entirely free program that we offer out to trade schools,
Mhm.
instructors, particularly in the mechanical trades. And so there's all these different kind of things that we do outside of just HouseCall Pro as, a software and solution provider that kind of help support that greater vision. And when our customers hear that, they donate their time to speak at these trade schools. So they'll say, hey, at a day in the life, here's what it looks like, kids,
Yeah.
And what's funny is there's a huge percentage of the class that's Gen Z, but the Trade Academy scholarship, the winners, I think the youngest was 16, the oldest was 72. So there's still, all generations are represented. Silent generation, baby boomer still, they're all in the mix. Millennial, Gen Z, they're all kind of in this trade school, wave. And it's really fun to see. And we do it independent of just the community aspect, but it does help the community. And it's a good part of our mission.
I'd love to have you back, man. This has been absolutely dynamic and fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to hearing you speak in Sonoma at our Leaders Forum event. What a great story to follow. I mean, personally, I've had 3 contractors on my property in the last 6 months that have all had their HouseCall Pro right out in front of them, and because I'm always curious when when a locksmith comes to the house, and he basically offers to me, say, "Oh, you're in marketing, right? You do marketing?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I haven't touched anything else other than my phone for months now. It's incredible. I can do everything I really want to do on my phone. So I think that's definitely, there's no doubt you're on a wave of the future, to say the least. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Dave. Pleasure talking to you, and excited to go speak at an event coming up here in, I don't know, what is it, 50 days or something? Coming up pretty soon. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Hey, thanks for joining us for this episode of Between Two Bs, the official podcast of the B to SMB Institute and our 5,000 plus business to small business professionals. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes at the crossroads of the big B and the small B. Between Two Bs on your favorite streaming services.